Hi guys, I am at the bus station in Selçuk. From here, I'm heading to the Mediterranean coast, which Russian tourists love. I am planning to visit the cities of Bodrum, Marmaris, Fethiye, and Antalya. My main point of interest is located near the city of Kemer. This is the mystical Mount Chimera, spewing tongues of flame. This is what I want to see. There is a C223 flamingo plane in the bus station parking lot. It would be cool to continue the journey on it and admire the beautiful landscapes of Turkey from a bird's eye view, but alas, I have neither a pilot's license nor money for this adventure. So after dreaming a little, it's time to come down to earth and get on a regular bus. Well, while the bus is moving towards the resort town of Bodrum, let me perhaps rehabilitate myself before Selçuk and say a few words about the city itself and what I did not have time to see in it. Modern Selçuk stands side by side with ancient Ephesus, and the stones of its most important structures were borrowed from the once legendary Roman city. In Selçuk, there is the Ephesus Museum, where interesting finds discovered during excavations of the ruins of ancient Ephesus are exhibited. Here you can see household items from the ancient era, from jewelry to kitchen pots and glassware. Of particular interest is the impressive collection of sculptures of the multi-breasted and broad-hipped Artemis, who embodied fertility. The highest point of Selçuk is crowned by a medieval fortress, but unfortunately at the time of my stay in the city, it was closed to visitors. Next to the fortress are the ruins of one of the main shrines of Christianity, the Basilica of Saint John. It is hard to imagine that it was once as large and magnificent as Istanbul's Hagia Sophia. It is here that St. John the Evangelist rests. After some time, I arrived in Bodrum, and the first thing I did was go to the beach, but I couldn't pass by the pier and admire my favorite yachts. It would be cool to climb around these yachts now and see what's inside them, and even better, raise the sails and go out to sea. That would be really cool. Bodrum is the most party resort in Turkey, the capital of the country's nightlife, with a record density of bars, nightclubs, restaurants, and discos per square kilometer. The city is spread over 14 bays of the peninsula, where villages and numerous hotels are located. Unlike most Turkish resorts, lovers of active recreation and noisy parties come here. Today's Bodrum stands on the site of the ancient city of Halikarnassus, where the famous Halikarnassus Mausoleum, one of the 7 wonders of the world, was located. But unfortunately, the mausoleum was destroyed by an earthquake in the Middle Ages, and what remains of it can only be seen today in the British Museum in London. Nevertheless, the city still preserves centuries-old evidence of ancient civilizations in the old part of the city, which coexist with modern architecture. Bodrum consists of 2 parts. The eastern part has a long and comfortable beach with bars, restaurants, and clubs for every taste, and the western part has a more relaxed and measured life concentrated around the pier and yacht club. Due to frequent winds, Bodrum is suitable for fans of surfing and other water sports. Bodrum is a typical resort town in Turkey, and an integral attribute of all resort towns are street markets and souvenir stalls. In Bodrum, they are located right along the beach, and in the evening crowds of people flock here, and it is almost impossible to walk along this narrow street. So I decided to visit it in the morning when there are few people. Evening fell on Bodrum, and after walking around the city to my heart's content and getting pretty tired from carrying a heavy backpack on my back, I settled down on the city beach to pitch a tent, cook dinner, and admire the scarlet sunset over the Mediterranean Sea. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a more suitable and secluded place for a camp since the city is a tourist one and every sliver of land by the sea is used for tourist infrastructure. I hope the night won't be too noisy and I'll be able to get a good night's sleep to the music of the surf and the cries of seagulls, so let's enjoy the sunset together and say goodbye until tomorrow. Good morning! Another new day begins, and cars are going back and forth. If the sun is not too lazy to rise, then it is not a big deal for us either. I remembered these lines from a song this morning. And indeed, the sun has already risen, I've woken up, and it is time to move on. I will drive along the coast towards Antalya, and my destination today will be the city of Fethiye. There is no direct bus service between Bodrum and Fethiye, so my route lay through the city of Mughla, which, unlike the province of the same name, is not a resort, and there is nothing to do in the city except just wander along the narrow streets with many shops, taverns, and stores, but I think that there is no point in wasting time on this, and having changed to a bus to Fethiye at the main square of the city, I continued my journey along the southern coast of sunny Turkey. After some time, I arrived in the city of Fethiye, and am now walking along some channel towards the beach. On the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, at the foot of the forested Turkish mountains, lies the ancient City of the Sun, picturesque Fethiye. The city is located on the eastern shore of the Gulf of Fethiye and is surrounded by mountains, the slopes of which are covered with cedar and pine forests, and the peaks are covered with snow in winter. A cape jutting out into the sea, and a dozen islands scattered in the bay, like pearls, surround Fethiye, giving its coast a nice coziness and providing excellent shelter for yachts. The situation with the beaches in Fethiye is not very good, and there are no beaches at all directly within the city limits of the resort. Of course, you can swim and sunbathe in the coastal zone of Fethiye itself, but alas, the local water area cannot be called ecologically perfect. The renewal of seawater at this corner of the coast is prevented by the land areas that enclose it, a sandy cape and islands located in the Gulf of Fethiye. The absence of a beach strip within the city limits is somewhat compensated by a large and quite beautiful park named after the hero Fethi Bey, a famous Turkish pilot who planned to make the first long-distance flight from Istanbul to Cairo, but crashed and received the title of the first hero of the Turkish Air Force. The park has numerous recreation areas for children and adults. There are many trees, green lawns, benches, and sun loungers overlooking the bay, walking and cycling paths, as well as special picnic areas. The entire territory of the park is decorated with original sculptural compositions from children's favorite Smurfs to giant snails, paper boats, and windmills. I've been walking for over an hour to the beach. I'm fed up with it, but I saw a beautiful park on the embankment, so let's consider that I've been walking for a long time for a reason. However, I don't like the water in the sea at all. It's very muddy and I don't want to swim in it at all. I finally found a beach where I can stop for the night with a tent, and the first thing I did was swim in the sea, and now I'm cooking some pasta. And while they're cooking, I decided to treat myself to some chips for the first time in 2 months. I must say that the place where I stopped is very atmospheric. There are mountains all around, a beautiful embankment, and a wonderful park, but the water in the sea is the color of a Russian swamp and has a corresponding smell. Well, I'm not lucky with the sea today, but let's hope that the place is quiet and I'll be able to have a good rest after a 7-kilometer walk from the bus stop to this beach. After, as I put it, the traveler's working days, the most wonderful time would come in the evening when the heavy backpack would come off the shoulders, and with it the fatigue that had accumulated during the day's journey would slowly slide away. The midday heat would give way to the evening coolness, and nothing would stop you from enjoying the sunset, watching the sun go beyond the horizon and saying goodbye to it until the next morning. The morning paints the Mediterranean waves with bright light. The whole Turkish land is sprinkled with dawn. This is how a popular Russian poem that I have reworked sounds, but it is time to finish my literary research and leave the beach that has sheltered me to go to the fire-breathing mountain Chimera, which is located near the city of Kemer. I will try to get there by hitchhiking. And now a farewell look at the sea and on my way. Having made a 5-kilometer march along the endless fields sown with wheat and rare houses of local farmers in whose gardens I have enjoyed my fill of mulberries, I got from the beach near Fethiye to the main highway to Antalya and raised my finger up. But unfortunately, the Turkish god of hitchhiking on this day, again, refused to patronize me, and I had to use a minibus, having driven a little away from Fethiye. From the bus windows, I saw that very postcard Turkey that I had been waiting for all this time. My gaze fell on mountain serpentines, with steep cliffs and secluded bays with emerald and crystal clear water. These were the amazingly beautiful landscapes in the vicinity of the city of Kaş. Kaş is one of the most unconventional resorts in Turkey, located in a fairly closed place at the junction of the Mediterranean and Aegean Seas, surrounded on 3 sides by mountains and pine forests. This resort is almost the only corner of Turkey where the mass tourist has not reached due to the fairly large distance from the airports and the absence of large hotels. Kaş in translation from Turkish means eyebrow. And indeed, if you look at the resort from a bird's eye view, the comparison with this part of the human face will be obvious. The city of Kaş is nestled on the slopes of the mountains descending to the sea, and the local coastal waters are very popular among diving enthusiasts. A short distance from the city there is a campsite where I actually went, but after looking around the place I preferred to stop in a small bay with a view of the mountains. Going back a bit in time, it is worth noting that lately I have not had much luck with hitchhiking and all the cars pass me by. Maybe it is because the local drivers are tired of tourists hitchhiking on the road, or maybe it is because I do not give a positive enough thumbs up. One way or another, today was just such an unlucky day. I spent 3 hours on the road under the scorching sun trying to catch a car, but when the sun was at its zenith and the air temperature exceeded 35 degrees, I decided not to wait for sunstroke and go by bus. After some time, having enjoyed the beautiful views of the mountain serpentine sitting in a comfortable chair and blown by air conditioning, I found myself in the city of Kast, where I was rewarded for my morning torment. An amazing lagoon with emerald in color and crystal clear water. Good morning, guys. If, of course, a Saturday morning in a Turkish campsite can be called good. The thing is that I didn't sleep at all last night, and the reason for that was a noisy company of Turks who settled down nearby and made noise all night long, and calmed down only in the morning with the first crows of local roosters, but by that time it was time for me to get ready for the road. Now they are sleeping soundly after a fun night, and I, completely exhausted and not at all rested with a heavy backpack, I'm forced to go on. As luck would have it, today I have a difficult climb planned to the fire-breathing mountain Chimera, and I will need all my strength to climb there with my heavy backpack in 30-degree heat. I think I should find some quiet and secluded place for a tent and sleep at least a couple of hours before the climb. And again, the bus took me along the mountain serpentine, descending from the highway to the village of Sirali, from where I plan to start my ascent to the fiery mountain along my own route. Mount Chimera is an unusual peak near the Turkish village of Sirali, on the slopes of which natural gas constantly burns. The fiery mountain is made of serpentine, and is considered the most mystical attraction of Turkey. This legendary peak has been known since ancient times. It is described in Homer's Iliad as a place where a terrible monster lived. A unique natural phenomenon, namely the release of methane and its ignition from static electricity, has been happening on the mountain for 1,000 years. The miracle of the burning mountain has long attracted the attention of people and gave rise to many legends. Judging by the historical evidence left earlier, the burning torches on Mount Chimera reached 2 meters in height and served as a beacon for ships sailing along the coast of Turkey. According to ancient legend, a terrible disaster occurred in the ancient state of Lycia, which occupied the territory of modern Antalya. The connection between the giant Typhon and the snake woman Echidna gave birth to a terrible monster. It had the head and neck of a lion, the body of a goat, and a writhing snake tail. Tongues of fire erupted from the mouth of the Chimera. The monster caused many disasters and no one was able to defeat it. Only the hero Bellerophon was able to cope with the difficult task. He fought the Chimera on the winged horse Pegasus and managed to hit the monster with an arrow from a bow. The dead Chimera fell on the Aleian plains and Pegasus trampled it into the ground. Well, I finally got to the national park in the town of Olympos, which is marked as a nature reserve in my maps, and now I'm going to go look for a wild trail leading to the top of the mysterious Chimera mountain to see with my own eyes the tongues of hellfire bursting out of its depths. Phew, I certainly found the trail, but I want to say that I didn't even imagine that it would be so hard to walk along it with a backpack on my back. The slope of the trail is 30 to 40 degrees. There are thorns everywhere mercilessly scratching my legs, and for dessert, the fierce heat and stuffiness knocking my breath away. This is brutal. This is just some kind of holiday, a holiday of pain and suffering. Now it will get dark, and it will be super. Yes, guys, this is just some kind of quiet horror. Now I almost stepped on a snake that I didn't notice in the dark. It was a small viper, about 15 centimeters long, but no less dangerous. I'm walking in thin mesh sneakers and shorts, which makes me very vulnerable to snakes. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to film her as she quickly crawled under a large rock. You know, on the slopes of this mountain, everything looks monotonous, and any direction can be taken for a path. It's quite difficult for me to navigate and guess the right path. Sometimes I come across pyramids made of stones, and apparently they should serve as some kind of landmarks. Yeah, and well, I've already armed myself with a stick, and moving forward, I tap the path and stones, creating noise and vibration in order to scare away the snakes in advance. This is still a scary topic with crawling reptiles. After some time, pretty exhausted and thirsty, I reached the top of Mount Chimera, where crowds of tourists were waiting for me, having come here along an easy road leading from the beach. Well, at least my impressions from visiting the mountain will be much brighter and more valuable than theirs. As for the hellish flame, it is clear that there is no mysticism with fire. Natural gas, seeping through rocks from the depths of the earth to its surface, ignites under the influence of static electricity and burns like an eternal flame in cities. But if it burns, then someone needs it. Watching how tourists cook food on the fire, I thought that we need it as a symbol of life, because without fire it is impossible. Perhaps just as the eternal flame symbolizes memory, the fire on the mountain symbolizes life, friendship, and peace on the entire planet. At least I would like to think so while traveling around our wonderful planet. And now, subscribe to the channel, like it, share this video with your friends, and see you very soon, but in a new country. Bye bye.